Monarch 500. Just a heads up, we start lifting operation now, so just keep an eye out.
With those simple words, the second largest salvage operation in history enters its final phase. Under this massive crane barge dangles a 350-tonne chunk of what was once the Rena's accommodation block. The plan is to lift it out of the water and lower it onto another barge. It'll be an extraordinary sight, but as we found out, in salvage, nothing is simple. 3 days earlier, the whole operation was teetering on the brink.
So the plan is to eventually, when the weather settles just a little bit more, transfer the load from the chains here to the hooks you can see in front of us.
Roger King arrived in New Zealand shortly after the Rena broke in two in January 2012. He's overseen a salvage operation that so far cost $350 million, making it the second most costly in history after the Costa Concordia in Italy.
There's a lot of work, a lot of engineering and a lot of manpower, and the most pleasing thing overall for us is in the whole Rena operation, it's a safety record we've had with no one's been hurt, and we want to keep it that way.
The first phase of the salvage operation began 2 years ago. Containers, then the ship itself, were cut up and, for the first time anywhere in the world, removed by helicopter. The next phase saw specialist divers continue the process underwater, cutting the wreckage at depths of up to 50 metres.
So this burns around 10,000 degrees, and it cuts through concrete, steel, 6 inches thick.
Then, 5 months ago, salvors began work on removing the ship's entire 700-tonne accommodation block, also known as the house. On Monday, divers completed the cut. But an unfavourable swell meant the house had to be towed to shelter on the eastern side of Motiti Island. The top of the accommodation block is now just 10 metres below the surface, but this is still a very large piece of metal, 25 metres high, so that means the bottom is still at a depth of 35 metres. It's held in place by these two massive cable chains on either side, but the next phase will involve these two hooks, which will lift the 350-tonne section of metal out of the water, place it on a barge to be taken back to port.
Let me get the door shut.
The next day, the order is given to the 40 salvors who've been working around the clock on the barge to begin the lift.
The plan today is try to lift it up, get it on the hooks, and put it on the 1,000 that we could take it ashore.
And you reckon your barge and the crane, you're feeling confidence up to it?
Yes, sir. Very confident that we can do that.
4 hours later, the house is close enough for salvors to attach the hooks. But as barge master Matthew Gaspar begins to lift the house from the water...
So you've already got 250 tonne on those hooks right now?
Yes, on the hooks. That's total weight on the hooks right now.
Starting to get pretty heavy there.
Yes.
It's noticed the portside hoist wires have become dangerously twisted. The house is lowered back into the water and a diver and small boat come to the rescue.
What impressed me was the way the guys, no one complained, they just got on, found a solution.
Well, that's why you have professionals doing this sort of work, and why we've got guys from all around the world here.
Can't be much fun, middle of the night, hanging on a hook in the middle of the sea.
Hey, that's how we roll.
Hoist wires fixed, there's soon another major problem.
One of our equalizing shifts side loaded, so now we have to try and get in a bit shallow water, sit it down and fix the equalizing shift.
What's your time frame? You're going to try and do this tonight?
No, we're going to sit it down and give everybody a break. Everybody kind of burnt out. It was a hard day, so...
You've been out here, what, well over 18 hours already?
Yeah.
A little bit disappointing?
No, not
so
really.
Close.
It's so close, but this is salvage.
When we get back to the barge at 7 the next morning, the dive team is already hard at work fixing the latest problem.
Yeah, just leave the shackle on the end of the wire there.
But this will be no easy fix, and 10 hours pass before divers finally manage to realign the cable.
Yep, release that wire off there as well. This has been a real battle today. We've finally got it, you know, the 11th hour, it's the end of the day.
How bad could that hazard have been? What was the worst case scenario here?
Catastrophic. If it really went bad, it would be catastrophic. You know, there could be lives lost, damage done.
Diver safely back on deck, the operation begins where it left off 24 hours earlier.
But the wind gonna try to rotate us around, so we just be on standby for us.
And this time there'll be no stopping one of the most incredible sights in New Zealand maritime history. Like Atlantis rising from the sea, the Rena's accommodation block returns from the deep.
Andy, it's an extraordinary sight. What does it feel like for you?
A very happy person.
A lot.
I think the crew is very happy too.
It's been 2 years since this part of the Rena last saw the light of day, and what an extraordinary reappearance it's been. Every surface is teeming with life, multicoloured algae, barnacles, seaweed. The only question now is whether the structure can withstand the tearing action of the chains that are lifting it from the water. A few minutes later, we discovered it couldn't. The chains had sliced through a soft section of metal, meaning one side had dropped several metres. No harm done to the crew, the barge or us, but it did mean the house was now too low to be placed on the transport barge.
So the plan is to take it further around behind the island, find a nice safe quiet spot, place it back on the seabed, readjust the chain so we can get a safe lift. To lift it now and continue on would be against all good common sense.
An hour later, the house was lowered back into the water, proving that when it comes to the Rena, this really is a 4D operation. Deep, difficult, dangerous and full of delays.